Welcome, my fellow traders, to another market recap webinar here with Riz International. My name is Chris, and I am joined by the man himself. Rizwan Memon is back on the show. Riz, how you doing this evening?
Doing okay. Come see, come sa, as the French say. Ups and downs. But hey, this is the way things are. I'm glad to be back on.
No, it's great to have you. And speaking of ups and downs, we've been having that in the S&P 500 all week because the S&P 500 can't pick a flipping direction, which basically means we're trading sideways, to be honest with you. We have a lot of intraday movement. You can see that with the wicks on the candles and, the big moves. But we're really just kind of bouncing between 44 and 4,300 on the S&P 500. It just doesn't want to break either of those. We've tested 4,300 a couple times, especially like here when we had the war announcement come out and the market just tanked and it was bought right back up and pushed us right back into this channel between 43 and 4,400. And yeah, I mean, all week we were there. And we were telling you guys, like, hey, keep an eye on that 4,300 level, that 4,400 level. If you're in the elite membership, you would have gotten those announcements, and those have been holding rock solid. Riz, what's your take on this? Is just the market not being able to pick?
Yeah. You know what? So much is going on. So much has been going on with the world. Obviously, unless someone's living under a rock, I don't need to explain. The things happening in Ukraine. And obviously that's weighing on the market along with pretty much everyone at this point, whether you're in America, Canada, whether you're in Russia, obviously, whether in Ukraine or anywhere in Europe, everyone is kind of on edge. Um, and, this is a feeling that kind of reminds me of what we were all going through together in a way when, the pandemic first hit. And I'm not saying this is like the pandemic, but what I'm saying is that uncertainty, that feeling of that heaviness in the air, right? I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like a lot of people are in that boat where, obviously the people in Ukraine are going through the worst of it, absolutely obviously. Um, but even everyone else, those of us that pay attention and are trying to, really stay on top of what's happening across multiple um in sources, not just one single source, multiple sources, multiple sides of the story, it becomes very, very troubling, especially for me because I mean, I think that I look at this as my job, which is to be aware, to be in the know. Am I always right? Am I always, at the leading edge every second that something happens? Absolutely not. But I do my best to uh, be right at the cusp of it. And of course, it's a bit much. So I've said it before, and I will say it again, Chris, as we were just talking. We just got past globally, for the most part, we just got past a pandemic. Something that's a one in a century, one in 100 uh, type years type of thing, and we're looking right down the barrel of this big geopolitical fiasco. It's rough, it's difficult, and of course, it's translating into what we all know and love, which is the financial markets. And as Chris said, we've been consolidating. It's been an eventful week in the markets in the extent with the intraday swings. Swing from one day we'll have a green day and the next day will be red, and so on and so forth. We are always being, given the headlines on, what city in Ukraine is being moved in on, or what city is being bombarded next, or what um, you know uh, the leaders are saying, whether it's in Russia or whether it's in Ukraine. It's always one thing or another, and the market is continuously digesting that. But right now, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's good that the market hasn't rolled over completely and gone below the 4200 area, but it's also isn't ideal because if the market had completely digested what's going on, the potential impacts with what's going on in Ukraine, uh, they would I would think, we would move up above 4,400, but that's not happening. Even after this past week, uh, we saw, I think it was on, can't remember exactly, Tuesday or Wednesday or something. Jerome Powell said, they're expecting a quarter basis point, not half a basis point, uh, for this month, March rate hike. So the market went up with that because before this, in the beginning of the year, there was maybe some angst that maybe we're going to see a half a point rate hike in March, right? And the market, I know, would not have liked that. So uh, Powell saying, you know what, it's only going to be quarter, 0.25%. So 25 basis points is something the market liked, but it didn't matter much because it couldn't break above the 4,400. And here we are with a very bearish kind of candle on Friday. So I'm keeping an eye on this. As you know, in Elite, we didn't really place any new stock swing trades. Yeah, we did a couple of short puts, but other than that, we've stayed kind of just on the sidelines. And by sidelines, I mean we haven't been doing too much. We have the positions that we've had open over the last few weeks, even few months, and that's it. I haven't been adding to anything yet. I outlined a plan, and I stick by that plan, which is if we see 4,200 area in the index in the market, I'm gonna probably consider adding a little bit to my existing positions. And if you're wondering what my existing positions are, well, elite members know that live. So all open positions. So I'm going to add to those. And then when I do, I will obviously let those in Elite know in real time. But if we stay at these levels and maybe go to 4,400 or maybe go up, I am then going to kind of wait and see if I can sell into the rally, right? As we get into the 200-day moving average, which is just below the 4,500. As Chris is drawing here, if we get a nice push up, that'll be great. I don't mind taking some profits because I mean, I'm not looking to run this up all the way to highs, right? I think it's way too um, unreasonable to expect that in this kind of environment, at least in the near term. So if we have a prolonged move above 4,400 into 4,500 area, and assuming obviously the holdings that I have continue to also rally with the market, then yes, I'll look into consider to maybe sell some and book some profits. So hopefully that's an indication for you, sort of a review for those of you in Elite, and if you're watching the recording after and you're not in Elite, a little bit of a game plan that you won't really find elsewhere. Keep an eye on the 4,200 zone. That's very critical. And of course, I've said it before, and so has Chris and everyone else in Elite. We all know this. Do not be in a rush to trade. Your job as a trader, as an investor, isn't to do more. It's to do as little as you can without negatively impacting yourself, getting in your own way. And it sounds counterintuitive, right? Jobs, school, everything has taught us to do more because more equals better. And yeah, I would say that's true. You do more in your job, you take more initiative in your relationship, you do more in, you know, everything else. You work out more, or you be more active. There's good things, but in markets you need to have a good balance, and that balance is very critical. I'm not saying that go out there and just go completely passive, because hint hint, I can guarantee you that the next 10 years of returns in the financial markets, in the US market specifically, will not be like the 10 years prior. So everyone that thinks, oh hey, I'll just put myself in an index fund, there's nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong. There is definitely an opportunity there. It's definitely better than not investing at all. But it's a fallacy to think that because the average annualized return over the last, 20 years has been nearly 10%, it's a fallacy to assume that's going to be the case the next 10 years, right? So this is very key, and I think a lot of people are not factoring this in, you know. But anyways, that's besides the point. I think we're going to see a lower annualized average yield return, sorry, in going, for the next 10 years. This is the way it is, and I'm not the only one calling for this either. Those that are in the know, in the business, in the industry for a long time, have been saying the same. And guess what? This year is a perfect indication of that. So with that in mind, I'm taking things slow. We're I can't believe it. We're in March already, and we're got another 20, 25 days or so till the end of Q1, right? Which is unbelievable. So yes, I'm not looking to force any moves. Please be patient. Again, don't let fear or greed define the way you trade and what you do in markets, because you could make some money. You could make some money, but what's the point if you make money now and only to end up losing it later on because you just couldn't sit it out?
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important message right now, that it is not the time to be overtrading. It is the time to be getting ready and being ready for that rally and taking profits when you can. So just be careful right now. I understand that it's like, oh, I'm in this trading community. We should be placing trades all the time. That's not the type of community we are. We want to make the right trades. We want to make the high percentage trades that, are going to work, and we don't just spam trades for the sake of spamming trades. And that's a really important thing in learning how to be a profitable trader, is to know when it's time to go and when it's time to hold tight. All right, let's move on. And if you guys want to hear an interesting story about things going on in Ukraine, make sure you stay till the end of the webinar. I have some things I can tell you about. Let's talk about the breakdown for the S&P 500. Obviously, energy going freaking nuts right now. Of course, the price of oil is one of the main moving factors in that. Utility is getting a bit of a spike here, but everything else is still pretty low. It looks like utilities just broke over the zero line, basically flat on the year, and really energy is the only thing holding the S&P 500 up at this point. Obviously, Riz, with everything going on overseas, the price of oil has spiked, and I know we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Is there anything you really are seeing here that you find interesting, or is kind of business as usual?
Yes, I will draw some light to what's going on here. So with utilities moving up, this is actually seen as a sort of a bearish indicator for markets. Now, again, just because utilities go up doesn't mean, oh my God, markets are going to drop. No, but these are things that we monitor closely. And there are some correlations that when utilities go up, utilities are seen a little bit more as a risk off. Utilities are seen more as an income type of play. So when they start moving up, and while markets remain down, that kind of tells you, okay, if it wasn't obvious enough already, that the market is in a bit of a risk-off position, and it stays that way. And you can see that with the S&P 500, just about 9.5% down on the year, right? With of course tech being the biggest leader in those drawdowns. But ultimately, the big highlight here is energy, and I think you know, I don't think it should become a surprise to anyone, but I probably mentioned it 3, 4 weeks ago. I said, if this thing with Russia does happen, um, again, no one could have said that, okay, there's for sure going to be an invasion or a war, but here we are. But at that moment, I remember thinking, okay, if something does happen, if Russia does invade Ukraine, we could see oil prices just completely, break any and all technicals and just run. And that's exactly what's happened. We've seen oil prices run. We've seen natural gas prices run. We've even seen some metals run. We've seen wheat prices go absolutely nuts. And of course, these are for obvious reasons, right? Was there a key, exact, precise way to know that this would happen? Of course not. Of course not. And I'm of the kind of belief that if this continues, we could see oil a little bit higher. But we'll get into that in the next tab.
All right, well, let's get into that. Riz talked about the black gold and the shiny gold, and so let's take a look at that. Talking about oil prices going for a run. Look at this. I mean, we were kind of climbing up beforehand, but man, this conflict really spiked it off. Oil currently closed on Friday. Looks like where are we at? 115.68 per barrel. Haven't seen prices like that since 2008, 2007.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy.
Sounds about right. I remember I was trading. This life is just it's insane. I was at my desk. What was it? I can't remember exactly, but I remember as a kid and thinking, looking at oil prices, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is crazy." And I remember when prices started moving back down. I think that was in 2014. I think it was 2014.
Yeah. Well,
We
let's look.
had to start moving down, I think, from 120 or $110 a barrel. And then obviously prices never came back up. And I always remember trading it. I'm like, wow, is this the end of oil? And yeah, take a look at that. 2014, it was at 100, right? Yeah,
Yep.
pretty much, right? And then it just kind of went lower and lower and lower. And then obviously we had the last 2 years with the pandemic. And then, of course, can't forget the brief day and a bit of negative oil, negative $40 about, and here we are. From negative 40 to $116, let's say, per barrel in a span of 2 years. You can't make this stuff up. This is unprecedented. I don't care who you are, whether it's Warren Buffett or whoever. No one has seen this kind of um, wild, inexplicable things occur in the span of 2 years, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's asset prices going all over the place, whether it's a war in Europe. Like it's ridiculous, right? And it's all back to back. So here we are with oil at 116, and I feel like if this continues with Ukraine and Russia, I think oil can continue to go higher. Um, do I do I feel like that's something that's reasonable? I mean, I hope it doesn't come to it. But hey, here we are. I think oil at 120 could happen this week if the situation continues. If there's some positive news, if there is some, headway. I believe March 7th is when the next round of meetings are to be done with Russian and Ukraine officials on figuring out some kind of agreement. I don't know exactly what, but that's scheduled. What comes of that remains to be seen. So yes, oil is at this point extremely, extremely front and center with everyone in the world, especially Europe, because to give you guys an idea, natural gas prices in Europe. So Europeans are paying 3 times more for natural gas than in America. And already natural gas is very expensive compared to previous years in America. And then you do that, by 3 times multiple in Europe. So there's a massive energy squeeze in Europe happening right now for obvious reasons. And it's something we've touched on before. I said there's a massive supply constraint, and this was before this whole Ukraine Russia thing. So there was a massive constraint in Europe. Well, that's what happens when you don't invest in the traditional legacy energy infrastructure. And I've said it before, and here we are now. Everyone's paying the price for it, and I think this is obviously trickling towards everywhere because we had California State, I think, hit the um, average price of $5 per gallon in California State, and so that's indicative of what could happen for other states and obviously other countries as well. So it's not fun, and that is going to significantly impact inflation numbers. Mark my words. Gas prices at the pump, which are go up and down as a proxy of price per barrel. Guess what? Price per barrel is high, cost more for the gas stations to buy from the supplier. As a result, costs are higher, and as a result, they sell it for higher. Their margins are the same. I can tell you the margins are relatively the same. If you don't know how I can speak with authority on that, well, then you got to look into me a little bit more. But I can tell you the margins are the same. So people think, oh my God, gas stations are making so much money. Not necessarily. It costs an arm and a leg to get a tanker, whereas before it costed a leg. Now it costs an arm and a leg. And guess what? That's passed on with everything else, right? So the margin's still about the same. The people that are making a killing on this are the um, major legacy producers, exploration, and producers like Exxon, Chevron, um, Occidental. We've got what else? We've got Shell, uh, and so on and so forth, right? So they are the ones making killing. Number two, the people that are making a lot of money, and I bet none of you have probably thought about this, is the government. The government takes a significant percentage at the pump in tax. A lot of that price you see is actually tax. So gas prices are quoted including tax. So ding, 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 depending on what your tax rate is from state and what the government charges for carbon tax and this tax and that tax, on the price per liter or gallon, well, that's already baked into the price. So no wonder you're paying a significant amount. I can tell you when we order one tanker for the gas station, one big long tanker, like you've probably seen, would cost approximately $60,000. Now one tanker is about $100,000+, one tanker to come fill up. Okay, so uh, same tanker, same amount of volume, but just a massive increase in cost. Here's something, another thing you won't hear from everyone else, and so it's a really odd kind of situation that we're in, but hopefully it kind of resolves itself. But we need this Russia-Ukraine conflict to abate, to go away, to be resolved. That is the first and foremost, most important thing that we need, not just as human beings, but uh, from a more economic, finance standpoint, we need that because otherwise supply chains are going to continue to be completely wrecked because a large part of neon, which is what is uh, used in making semiconductors, is comes from Ukraine, right? So you can, again, this is stuff that no one's going to be talking to you about. So if you're watching this, I hope it's helpful to you, where a large significant portion of neon is from Ukraine, and obviously, ding, 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 Ukraine is, under a very perilous situation. Guess what happens? We could be a further crunch in and shortage in supplying and creating chipsets, semiconductors, and obviously we know that that's used in pretty much everything from your cell phone to your computer to your calculator to your, you name it. So yeah, it's not looking good. I'm not gonna go out and raise the alarm bells. I'm not gonna be sitting here and sowing panic. But it's not a good situation. And you know what? That's a similar case with gold finally acting as a little bit of a hedge. We've set a massive bid on last trading's close, with gold coming in at 1970 per ounce, so nearly $2,000 an ounce now. And I'm not surprised. Like I said, the moment some crazy things happened, which we know none of us expected 2 weeks ago, that's when all technicals go out the window. That's when, you know, you did the whole lines on a chart kind of thing, as we saw, don't really make too much of a difference anymore. Then it just comes down to cold, hard supply and demand and risk on and risk off. Right now, the market's risk off. Commodities are rallying. Money is being removed out of risk assets like stocks and even crypto and especially NFTs. I hear there's a lot of problems going on with NFTs. But hey, that's my kind of recap on these two asset classes.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, quite the rally in gold over the last couple of days. Really kind of going here. And what's not really going is Bitcoin. Honestly, as Riz alluded to, really not going the way that people expected. With this conflict, we had this spike here, but it comes right back down to this 40,000 level here with crypto. It seems like everybody is really putting their money in different classes, like Riz was talking about, like gold, like oil, things like that. It is interesting to watch, but yeah, it really looks like 45,000 is being a bit of an issue here for Bitcoin, and 40,000 seems to be somewhere they just kind of stuck in that zone. Really is kind of where it's at. I don't really have a whole lot to say else on Bitcoin right now, but yeah, it's been interesting to watch how the rotations in the sectors.
Yeah, it's. I remember when everyone was like, Bitcoin is the place to be, especially when it's the value of currencies, and we've seen that, like the value of the ruble, the Russian ruble, completely annihilated. That what Bitcoin is kind of the answer to that, and we haven't really seen that materialize um, in the price of it, right? You can see the last week the price has actually dropped down from 45,000. But hey, like I've said before, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It just kind of remains to be seen what is in store. What's the cycle for Bitcoin? Because we know it's not a hedge. We know that crypto as a whole isn't a hedge to the traditional risk assets. In fact, it moves pretty much in tandem with broader tech stocks. I've noticed a correlation between Bitcoin and the Nasdaq. So that's another insightful tidbit there for you to think about. So yes, again, it's not a bad thing if you have, Bitcoin or Ethereum or other crypto. It's just not working out how the big time believers hoped it would, where war, uncertainty, devaluation of currency, um, you know, all that would play into the base case for crypto being number one, right? But it's not really manifesting when it comes to the price itself.
No, that's a really good insight on that. And now is the time for questions. Unless you had something specific else you wanted to add, Riz, was there anything you're looking at, or are you just really kind of waiting for the markets to cool off and figure out which way it wants to go?
Honestly, waiting. I'm pleading with everyone. Please be patient. Um, please play calm. I know, like Chris said, if you're in a league, you want to trade. I get that. I completely understand. But it would be negligent. It would be downright criminal to just trade for the sake of trading. That is a complete no-no. It goes against my principles of only sharing trades that I take and only trading when I genuinely am okay with it, not for any external other reason. So, as you know, I'm unapologetic. If I don't place any trades, I say I don't place any trades. I'm not trading. Simple. Um, and who knows how this week goes? Maybe we see a positive thing. Hopefully, we hear some good news with the Ukraine-Russia situation. Maybe we get a nice pickup, but that remains to be seen. I'm not going to commit to any kind of um, situation where, yes, I'm going to be placing trades this week, or hey, this is what I'm going to buy, or this is what I'm going to sell, because it's a bit too preemptive to say that right now.
Absolutely, and I think that's an important point. And of course, right now is when the dog decides it wants to play with me. Right while we're in the middle of webinar, that makes sense. But Stephen sent me a question via PM, and I want to remind everybody that if you can't make the live webinar and you have a question you want us to cover, please don't hesitate to send us a PM, and we will get it taken care of on the webinar. And Stephen wants to talk about Uber today. All right, so Steven says, I have a question about Uber. I took a small position of 100 shares. Yeah, real small. At a cost basis of around $4,000, a little over $4,000, back in early February. So let's see. Somewhere in this area, obviously. He has been writing covered calls ever since. Nice, that'll decrease your cost average. That's always good. Am I correct in thinking that Uber will continue going down because of the increase in fuel prices or the cost of crude oil? I want to increase my position, but I'm debating if I should wait till oil can stabilize or the market finds a direction. Riz, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a very neat question, especially in this kind of environment. So we know that Uber drivers are compensated on multiple ways, right? It goes based on geographical location, the type of car, like whether it's Uber Black, and then of course those costs are then transferred to the customer. Um, with gas prices going so high, maybe it doesn't make any sense for certain drivers to take rides or go out there anymore because, hey, going and driving someone 2 kilometers, and after you've paid for gas, after factoring in, how much it costs, per kilometer or per mile, depending on where you are, and you may not be worth it anymore. So we may see a drop off in ride hailing, uh, let's say users, and Uber measures total rides uh, provided or taken uh, every quarter. They also share their, let's say, total volume, how many rides were taken, how many drivers they have, and so on and so forth, how many miles or kilometers were clocked in on their app. And of course, that's not a good thing when people don't want to drive. So that's why you're seeing the stock pull back a little bit. I would personally not consider averaging in this right now. I feel like averaging in this environment, in a stock like this, with everything going on, I think it's just more of an emotional decision than an actual calculating unbiased one. And I'm not picking on you, Stephen. I'm just saying that this is everyone goes through it, myself included, but from someone who's outside of the situation, I don't have a position in it, and I can tell you objectively, maybe it's just not worth buying more. I can see why. I understand you want to bring your cost basis down and continue to do covered calls on more shares, but just keep doing covered calls. If you are okay holding this, because the market is not completely sure. We just had earnings already had earnings release like a week or two ago, and the next earnings is another 2 months away. So it's still early days. So maybe the market is kind of pricing in this a little bit early, how these gas prices are going to impact their drivers, and as a result, impact their users. Who knows? Maybe Uber comes out and says, "Okay, we're going to raise prices," and then someone who needs to take an Uber is going to take an Uber either way. What are they going to do, right? So maybe that's how they react. I don't know exactly, right? I'm not on the board there, but it's definitely interesting to see how everything kind of goes out of flux when we see something like the number one energy source on this planet, oil, go completely unhinged, and for obvious reasons. This is why everyone, there's nothing wrong with green energy and clean energy and solar, but none of it is a replacement for legacy energy like oil, like natural gas, period.
Well, there you have it, folks. All right. Sean says, can we talk a little bit about the 10-year Treasury and its fluctuations this week? Riz, I know you're probably itching to talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, the 10-year Treasury. Chris, I think you can bring it up. Trying to blanking on the thing, but just press 10. What is it? I think we brought it up last time, right? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, just bring that up. Yeah, so 1.73. So the 10-year Treasury yield moving up, touch the 2%, come back down. Usually when we see the yields go up, that means it's getting more expensive to borrow. The reason we saw Treasury yields dip, Sean, is because of, remember I told you, I mentioned maybe the market was pricing in a 0.5%, a 50 basis point hike in March. So we had a massive surge, right? Run up into 2022 and the beginning of the year. What's pulled back now is because the market is pretty certain that this month the rate hike is going to be 25 basis points. So it kind of corrected a bit. I don't think 10-year yields are too big a factor right now in terms of market gyrations. Before, back I remember in 2021, it was in the beginning of the year, 2021 is all about the 10-year, right? I remember February, March 2021 when tech stocks took a little bit of a beating back then. One of the reasons was the 10-year, or so to speak, they claimed. But really right now, I don't think it's too big a deal. What matters most is benchmark rates, which we obviously are expecting will be going up at the next Fed meeting, I think on March 16th, don't quote me, by 25 basis points. So that I think is being baked in the market. And of course, the Ukraine situation. I think that's the big thing that the market really, really, really needs to see sort out. Because otherwise we're going to have to reset the board, and then I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and just start the calculations again on where and what the impact can be. So what do I mean by that? I mean, how does the world look with $130 or $140 or $150 price per barrel of oil? How does the world look without, a massive decrease in neon, as I mentioned before, coming out of Ukraine, and thus further impacting supply chains for semiconductors? How is that going to have a trickle down effect to other semiconductor stocks, to automotive stocks, to anything and everything? Because as we know, the semiconductors pretty much ingrained in our lives. Short of being in our skulls, they're everywhere. So this is a very, very, very unprecedented, unique thing. Just keep an eye on it. I wouldn't stress about the 10-year though. If there's other things, if you want to stress, there's other things you should stress about.
That there most certainly is. There is always other things to stress about. I got a question for you. I know some people are typing here. Let's go down the rabbit hole, shall we? Let's go down the rabbit hole because this is fun. You ready? Riz is always ready to go down the rabbit hole. I call him Alice in our chat. So let's say some Spetsnaz operative decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to cash in on that $1 million bounty. And let's say that Putin disappears. The war's over. Russia says, hey, we're sorry. We're going to pull out. It's all good. We'll help you rebuild Ukraine, all that jazz. Do you think, Riz, that oil will drop at that point? Or do you think it will hold the levels that it's at right now?
100% drop.
Okay.
100% drop. It will drop. I'm not thinking it will drop 100%, but I mean 100% it will drop.
Yeah.
And I will then bring the guns out, metaphorically, to capture that. I hinted at this. I hinted at it last week for those that are paying attention in Elite on what I might do with oil. I'm not going to give away too much right now because there's some that things are just exclusive to Elite members. But yes, I think when this does happen, the timing is going to be key. I mean, I've already kind of said what I will do. It doesn't take a genius to read between the lines when it comes to oil. If, like you said, going down the rabbit hole, this gets resolved. Even if it gets resolved in a less of a clean-cut way, like you said, maybe, Putin said, you know what, okay, we did our operation, we did our exercise in there, we did the de-escalation and whatever we needed to do, and we, whatever spin they put on it, and he goes out. Even in that case, and he doesn't say, we're going to rebuild. He doesn't say anything. Okay, we're done this exercise. We repatriated whatever we needed to, or whatever the spin they put on it, and they leave Ukraine, and things start normalizing a bit. Even then, oil prices are going to drop. So the question now comes is that going to happen? And if it does, when is that going to happen? And third, and most importantly, is it possible to capitalize on it? And again, I'm not trying to say that that's the making money in the most important thing, because it's not. I've been very vocal about that. But as a trader, as an investor, and obviously on a webinar that has to do with markets and financial markets, it's obviously would be negligent not to talk about how it can benefit a trader and what side to be on. And yes, I think if that does happen, speaking of your theory, yes, oil pulls back, definitely. You can pretty much write it in stone. As to how much, well, that depends. Who knows?
Thanks. I thought that might be interesting just to kind of get your take on that while we had you here. So awesome. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. We've got a couple minutes. I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story. So if you want to hang with me, and this is a true story because this just happened today. So if you may or may not know, and if this is not trading related, guys, this is just a personal story to kind of give you guys the human aspect of what's going on in Ukraine. And so if you want to leave, I understand that, but I will be watching the attendees to see who leaves, and I will note it in Discord. And yeah, you may have less permissions on Monday. Maybe, who knows? I'm joking, of course. Or am I? In any case, some of you may know, some of you may not. My wife is from Ukraine, and her mother is still there right now, and she's in the town of Nikolaev. And you know what? Let's break out the Google machine. Here we go. Into Ukraine we go. We're diving. So it's right here, right on the Black Sea, basically. That's her hometown. That's where we met. And they, if you've been following the news, the Russians have taken over Kherson, which is about 45 minutes away, right here. And they were talking about they were going to be coming to Nikolaev next. I know it's written Mykolaiv, but it's pronounced Nikolaev. So in any case, her mother is still there and has been there through the entire conflict at this point. And we had been trying to get her out, and we couldn't. We had a ride for her 2 days ago, and she got scared because there was fighting going on, and she said she didn't want the seat. My wife was about ready to pull her hair out at that point. Probably could have reached through the phone and slapped her mother if she tried hard enough, because she wants her out, right? So we came up with a plan. My wife read my mother-in-law the Riot Act yesterday. I have never heard my wife speak to her mother this way in her life. Of course, it was all in Russian, guys. So I have no idea what she said, but trust me, as her husband, I knew exactly what she said. even though it was in Russian. I'm like, oh yeah, mom's getting the business right now. Basically told her it's time to flipping go. So today, or actually yesterday, was the day. And so we had two plans set in motion, and there'll be a moral to the story here at the end, so stick with me. First plan was there had been an announcement put out on Instagram and on the internet that they were going to be having buses come to the bus station in Mykolaiv and take people to Poland. Now, I have to give all props to Poland. They have been accepting basically every refugee that has been coming their direction with no question. Just do the passport check and that thing. And there's even lines for people if they had to leave in a hurry and they couldn't get their documents for people to come through. They're also allowing pets to come through without documentation. All props to Poland right now for everything that they're doing for this refugee crisis. I really can't say enough for them. And so we'd heard that there were going to be buses there. And so the thing was, it was going to be first come, first serve. So there is a very strict curfew in Mykolaiv right now because of less than up and up activities going on at night. So basically, if you're caught out at night, it is trial by 762 by 39, if you know what I'm talking about. So obviously, we were very cautious of the curfew numbers. Once curfew was lifted, she hit the bricks. Off she went to the the bus stop. But me being who I am, had a secondary plan. A friend of mine who used to be an elite member and who he has since gone off and done his own thing, was speaking with a lady over in Ukraine, and they were looking to get her out as well. And she had a friend in Odessa, which is the town about 2 hours to the west, and also on the Black Sea, one of the biggest ports on the Black Sea for Ukraine. And they were going to have somebody from Odessa drive up, pick them up, and then take them to Odessa. And there was a lot more transportation out in Odessa. Right now in Mykolaiv, my wife's town, the rails are shut, the trains are shut down. There are no buses running. There are no taxis, nothing. It's like everything is shut down. And the thing you need to understand, in Ukraine, personal car ownership is a huge luxury. I mean, like a huge luxury. Here in the West, obviously, the vast majority of us have cars. Over there, not so much. So it's not like everybody could just jump in their car and go like we could here. So they had this, lined up. A personal friend of mine vouched for this person, said, yeah, she's a good person. You can trust her. And so, okay, that's our backup plan. So mom gets to the bus stop and she says there's about 500 people there. I'm like, okay, this could be a problem because we don't know how many buses are coming. And she waits and she waits. And of course, my wife is going crazy. She's at the hospital on shift, calling her mother about every 20 minutes. Like, has the buses arrived yet? Have the buses arrived yet? Nothing for like an hour and a half. And then the lady who had the car, who was coming up, called and said, hey, the car's coming. Do you want to come? Took the moment, said the decision, well, we don't know when the buses are going to show up. We don't know how many buses there's going to be. They said they could take about 50 people per bus. That means we're going to need 10 plus buses to show up, and we don't know if that's going to happen. We made the decision to go ahead and go with Plan B. So I need to give, I know I gave a lot of props to Poland. I need to give a lot of props to this lady who single-handedly made this possible. Not to dig too deep into the geography of the town, they had to get to one of the 3 bridges out of town. It was basically on the other side of town. Would have taken mom like an hour to walk there. This lady somehow finds someone who has a car, goes over, picks my mother-in-law up at the bus station, drives her to the bridge. They walk across the bridge. They get to the car. Sweet. Jump in the car, and what usually takes about 40 or 2.5 hours to traverse by car takes about 3 times as much. Traffic is through the roof. There are military checkpoints along the way because there are Russian operatives acting behind any enemy lines at this point. They're checking passports, making sure everybody's legit. All of this happened in about the sum period of 2 hours. And shortly after mom left, the Russians started attacking the town. I talked with one of my friends who's still there. She said that there were rocket attacks. She said she had one literally go over her head. It was something she said she'd never forget. And it's one of those cases where it's like sometimes you have to think on your feet. And it's kind of like that in trading as well. We all have a plan, right? We all have plan A, where we're like, okay, we're going to do this if this security does this. It's like, all right, we're going to, to get back into one of our, things we were looking at earlier. It's like Uber. Like, okay, it's going down. We're going to get in on this and we're going to get in this rebound, right? And it's going to be great. And then it just keeps going down. Sometimes that happens and you have to make a snap decision. Do I hold it or do I fold it? Do I sell or do I hold? Do I write covered calls? How am I going to handle this situation? And if you hesitate, that is your decision. And it's one of those things where sometimes you just have to take bold action and go for it. I can say that my mother-in-law, I call her my mom, is on a train right now, left Odessa last night, their time. They're going to the Ukrainian city of Lviv, which is about 30 miles away from the Polish border. Very happy. It's been a very taxing time for us. Obviously, my wife has been going nuts ever since this happened about 10 days ago. I like to say that my wife died about 10 days ago. Emotionally, of course, she's been going through hell. And yeah, I am too, Larry. I'm very glad she's safe. It truly is a miracle. And one of those things that it was fortuitous. And, sometimes in life when those things happen, you just kind of have to go for it. And so that was, my little story about, something that to make it more personal for you guys, because I understand, right? It's half a world away. I know a lot of people probably before this had no idea where Ukraine was. And that's okay. I wouldn't fault anybody for that. If you asked me where Moldova was, 2 weeks ago, I'd have been like, let me get on Google Maps and find that for you, because I couldn't tell you. It's right next to Ukraine, by the way. But it's one of those things, guys, where, there is a human aspect to it. And I know that no one here would really lose sight of that. And it's quite a trying, we're living in history is really what I'm trying to get at here. So soak it all in. I'm not saying to doom scroll, as I like to refer to it. Don't focus on the news all the time, every day, figuring out exactly what's going on in every region of Ukraine that you've never heard of before. But just take a moment and soak it in, because these are unprecedented times that we're in right now. And so really, remember this, because this is something that you could be telling your kids or your grandkids someday. So anyway, that was the story. Thank you for sticking around. I appreciate it. I tried to make it short. Riz, thank you for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. It was great having you back, and we're glad that everything went well for you and that you're back here with us.
No, of course, I appreciate that. Again, obviously I'm not. I'm aware of kind of what's been going on for you in terms of your personal life. So, again, I'm happy to hear that these things worked out. Obviously, your mother-in-law is safe, and hopefully Julia, your wife, for those that don't know, are in better spirits, because I can't imagine what that's like. I just can't. And
Yeah.
we are lucky. The rest of the world is lucky that we cannot imagine. Right? This is what I keep trying to tell people. No amount of money, none of this is. It's what's the point, right? What's the point if it comes at the cost of human life, at the cost of people becoming refugees, people losing their homes? Like, Chris, if someone were to tell me there's bombs going off 45 minutes from where I live, like, fuck, like I can't comprehend that.
Yeah, I
Right?
know.
But that was the reality for your mother-in-law.
Yep.
And so many others in Ukraine. And let me say this again too, because there've been a lot of people been jumping down my throat. And this is not just about Ukraine. This is everywhere that there's been war, where there's been damage, where there's been loss of life. I don't care where it is. It could be, and I know, and I'm going to say this publicly for everyone, that this is not just, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Ukraine, but the whole point is war, catastrophe, calamity, all these things are bad no matter what country. So everyone needs to realize that no matter who you are, we should all be able to empathize, no matter what country, race, religion, views, political leniency, like whatever way someone leans politically, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, no one should have to go through this stuff, and there's no justification for it. I'm sorry, there's no justification for um, death, war, violence, and stuff like this. I can't justify it. I know there's been people that have already said, Riz, you're calling me names and making all these kinds of you know bold claims and whatever. They can say what they want, but I cannot sit by and just say, you know what, okay, this is happening. How do we make money off of it? I can't look at it at this way. Um, maybe it's a gap in my logic. Maybe it's a chink in my armor. I don't know, but I can't do that. Because like you said, and you explained that perfectly, Chris, where you said it's a human aspect to it. Everything I've done in my life is part and parcel with the humanistic aspect. You can read charts all day and price action all day like fucking robots can do that, right? But what differentiates us is the empathy, the humanistic aspect. What differentiates us from everything else is that community, the ability to communicate, the ability to be a part of something, the ability to have a conscience, the ability to know what's right and wrong. And the moment we lose all that, especially if it's just for the quest of money and things and items, then it's too late. It's pointless, right? So again, thank you for sharing that. It's been a challenging week, I'm sure, for many across the globe. And this, your story just gives us a little bit of an idea as to what people have been going through, not only in Ukraine, but so many other countries, so many other places over years and years, that have to essentially uh, someone who is a citizen of a city, who grew up in a city or a town, can become a refugee in a matter of hours. So this is what's at stake.
You're really right. And, I'm going to issue a little challenge for everybody. And I think you guys are going to like this. When my mother-in-law called my wife and told her, like, oh, yeah, that person called me back and I didn't take the ride. Of course, my wife was just furious. I was furious too, because it's like I've been the emotional support for my wife all week, and she has a chance to get out and she doesn't take it. I'm nuts. So this was about 3 a.m. my time when I got the text message, and I'm like, I can't get back to sleep. So I went to the gym, right? Because I figure, you know what, if I'm gonna be angry, let's do some angry lifting, right? So I went and did that, and while I was lifting, I kind of had this moment where I was there, and I'm like, you know what, let's make some good in the world. There's too much bad stuff going on right now. There's too much stress. There's too much negativity. Let's do something positive, right? So my wife is working in a hospital in the rehabilitation unit, so I went to Dunkin' Donuts, bought 4 dozen donuts, drove them up there, and kind of surprised the wife a little bit. I texted her because I can't go in because of their regulations right now, but I texted her, I'm like, hey, come out to the parking lot. I'm here. She's like, what are you doing here? I got something for everybody. And, everybody there loved it from what I heard. So, and it made me feel like I did something positive in a sea of crap, for lack of a better term. So I want to challenge everybody, try and do something good this week. I don't care whether it's holding the door for somebody, go take coffee to somebody who's having a hard time, or just call a friend that you haven't talked to in a long time. Be like, hey, how you doing? What's going on with you? Do something positive this week to make an impact in the world, and I promise it will be returned upon you tenfold, because it was for me. So that is my challenge for everybody this week. Go out and do some good, because we need it. So with that note, thank you everybody for coming. Riz, thanks for being here this evening.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me. We will all get through this.
Yep.
It's only a matter of time. We all have to be positive, like you said. Do good, be good, and eventually good will happen. And that's really all that matters in the end. Yeah, of course, we're trading focused, money focused, yada yada. These things matter, of course. Money matters. These things matter, but let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. And let's keep pushing forward. Hopefully, everything goes well. Hopefully, we can get some good news and better positive spirits. All the best, everyone. And again, Chris, thanks for sharing your very very personal and very thought-provoking situation. I'm glad everything worked out well.
Absolutely. No, and as always, for all of our elite members, we'll see you in Discord on Monday. Good night, everybody.